Kissy, kissy. Hey, welcome back to Bipolar Movie Reviews. I got an interesting one to talk about today. Really interesting. I saw this movie yesterday, Across the Universe. Wasn't planning to see it, really didn't hear about it. So I got to tell you about how this came about. I got a friend, his name's Mike. He's a Deadhead. Every time I'm with him or see him or it picks me up, he's listening to Dead music. He's 50 years old just like me, and I'm not into the Grateful Dead. I saw them a couple times when I was young, but to me they're too cultish, and people trading 200 tapes and crappy audio tapes 30 years ago and listening to them and going, this time he sang this song better than he did in Denver and he did in Atlanta, and it was way too cultish. And people would say I saw him 12 times, and then this guy would say I saw him 73 times, and it was a little too much for me. I saw him twice, I enjoyed him, but that's about it. I don't really play the Grateful Dead, I don't really listen to them. But there are a lot of Deadheads still out there, and Mike's one of them. So he tells me the other day he saw this movie Across the Universe, and the Beatles were in it, and it's all Beatles music, and he says to me that this is a great movie. He said it was incredible. And so I'm thinking, well, it's Mike, and he's a Deadhead, and I always tell him it's vomit music, and every time I tell him it's vomit music, he gets mad at me, he takes it personally. And it's not vomit music, but I know it gets him pissed off, and he goes, this is a great movie, and I'm not a Beatles fan. Sure, when I was 20 years old, I listened to the Beatles, everyone did, and they're probably one of the most important bands of all time, and great songwriters and everything like that, but their music does nothing to me. I would never go home and flip on a Beatles song, ever. So to me, it didn't sound that good, and it was coming from Mike, so I didn't give it the validity that maybe someone else would give it to. And then, last night, my son calls me, actually, the night before last night, my son calls me. My son Steven, he's in New York City, he's 18 years old. He could care less about the Beatles. He doesn't know the Beatles, he doesn't like the Beatles, nothing, And he calls me up, he says, Dad, you gotta see this movie, it's the best movie ever. He gave it 4 stars. Now his favorite movie is Clockwork Orange. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because that's an incredible movie. And I couldn't believe that he said he loved this movie, so I said, oh, I gotta go see this movie, I gotta check it out. And he said, Dad, you gotta do a review on this movie. So I said, I'll go check it out, but I don't know what to expect. All Beatles music and video, and no one could really explain it to me. So I went yesterday in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, and I was the only one in this huge theater. So I sit down, and for the next 2+ hours, I'm sitting there totally intrigued by this movie, and it was, just to make it real simple, I'm going to give it 4 stars. 4 out of 4 stars. I'm not a Beatles fan, but I am going to download today this soundtrack from this movie, because what they did is they took all the Beatles music and they had great singers, choreography, great filmmaking, great acting, just about originality. It was truly a creative piece of art, I thought. And the music, some of the songs were done so well that there's no question that it sounded better with these people singing it and acting it and dancing to it than the Beatles ever could do with it. Yeah, they wrote it and they did it originally, but when you hear Hey Jude or Let It Be or all these songs that they do to this context, to the way they made this movie, and it's like a musical theater. It's like almost like a play. It almost could be a Broadway play, but I don't know if they could, because it was a cinematography that made this special, with the music, with the acting, and there was some type of plot. Everyone kept saying it really wasn't a plot, but there was a subplot, and it brought back memories of the 60s and 70s for me that I haven't felt in a long time. The Vietnam War, my brother being close to being drafted, and me just missing the draft, and what was going on in the colleges in Kent State and Vietnam and all that stuff, and it brought back memories of then, and it also reminded you of what's going on today, like in Iraq. at least it did for me, on how we're not radicalized about that war. We talk about it, people are pissed off about it and stuff like that. But in general, there's very little movement, violent movement, or even huge crowds, 100, 200,000 people protesting about it. So the movie was fantastic, and I just look at my notes for a second because there was a lot I wanted to talk about. And so I just want to say to my son, I love you and I miss you, and you made a great call on this movie, and and I don't know how to review this movie by really talking about the film, except you have to go see it. It's very, if you don't have a couple tears in your eyes by the end of the movie, or even during certain times of this movie, you're not a human being, because this really brings out some sensitivity, really brought out some sensitivity in me, and it was great. I'm going to see it again. I really liked it, and I really could care less about the Beatles music. I mean, I'm into like totally different types of music than that, and you know, jazz and Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Jean-Luc Ponty and stuff like that. And my movies are not like this. I don't like going to see musical movies and stuff like that in general, or movies with not major plots or stuff like that. So I highly recommend this movie, and I hope you enjoy it, and I know you'll enjoy it. It's a great movie, and thanks, Mike, for recommending it, and Steve, I'll see you soon, and do good on your test today. Love you. Bye.